Hello everyone, Selena here. Now we are going to listen to podcast news which includes important national, international and business, economy, news. While walking in the morning or evening, while cooking, cycling or during free time you can listen. It will enhance your learning and understanding of various accents and pronunciations. Listening improves the quality of communication and comprehension. Before going ahead, I would like to welcome you all to the virtual school. A new way of learning and teaching, with the vision of Let's Grow Together. Our mission is to learn how to learn and teach how to teach. So stay tuned. And here we go. July 15, 2021. Important national news. Government directs private centers to step up the pace of vaccination. States asked to monitor progress. Health Minister rubbishes claims of shortage. Virus protection. People waiting in the observation area of a Delhi hospital after receiving the COVID-19 shot on Wednesday. AFP. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. The slow pace of COVID-19 vaccination by private centers in some states is a cause of serious worry, Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan said on Wednesday. Mr. Bhushan said he had directed the states to review the status and progress of vaccine procurement by these centers on a daily basis. Many private COVID-19 vaccination centers, PCVCs, he said, had not placed any indent for the earmarked quantum of vaccines. Mr. Bhushan chaired a meeting with the health secretaries and senior immunization officials of 15 states and union territories during which the areas of concern were highlighted, including delay in ordering and lifting of doses and payment. He directed them to ensure that the indents for the earmarked quantum of vaccines were placed with the vaccine manufacturers at the earliest. Senior health officials of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Odisha, Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Gujarat, West Bengal, Delhi, Punjab and Haryana participated in the video conference. Nodal representatives from the vaccine manufacturers Bharat Biotech and Serum Institute of India, SII, were present. The state governments and the PCVCs were advised to ensure that the gap between the indented quantity and the payment towards their procurement was reduced to zero. Some states/PCVCs had not physically lifted the vaccines that had been paid for. They should ensure the lifting of the dispatched doses immediately, he said. A release issued by the Union Health Ministry said that in some states, wherever vaccine doses had been lifted by the PCVCs, their actual administration was seen to be less than the quantity lifted. The states and the PCVCs were advised to review this and ensure that the unutilized vaccine doses were quickly administered. The ministry said more than 39.59 crore doses had been provided to the states and the union territories so far, through all sources, and a further 30,250 doses were in the pipeline. Unutilized vaccines. Of this, the total consumption, including wastage, is 38,07,68,770 doses, as per data available at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. More than 1.51 cr, 1,51,52,450, balance and unutilized COVID vaccine doses are still available with the states/UTs and private hospitals to be administered, it stated. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya, in a series of tweets, rubbished allegations by the state governments of vaccine shortage due to the union government not ensuring adequate supplies. 11.46 cr doses of vaccine were made available to states' Govts in June so that vaccination can be done through government and private hospitals, he said. This availability has been increased to 13.50 crores in the month of July. Delhi police fined 25,000 Indian rupees for farcical probe. Court fines Delhi police 25,000 Indian rupees for farcical probe into riots case. It says officials have miserably failed in their statutory duties. Policemen stand in front of vandalized shops following riots in northeast Delhi's Bhajanpura on February 24, 2020. File photo Sajid Hussain. Swabam Rocky Singh, New Delhi. A local court here has imposed a cost of 25,000 Indian rupees on the Delhi police while questioning the fairness of the probe conducted into a case of a man who suffered a gunshot injury in his left eye during the northeast Delhi riots in February last year. Additional Sessions Judge Vinod Yadav censured Delhi police for resisting registration of infer based on the complaint of the victim, Mohammad Nasir, a resident of North Gonda in Delhi. It is clearly evident that defense for the accused persons named in the complaint of respondent Mr. Nasir has been sought to be created by the police, the judge remarked while dismissing Delhi Police's appeal against an October 21, 2020, order of a trial court here directing registration of Enfer. Bhajanpura show. Seeing the matter from any angle, I have not been able to persuade myself about the efficacy and fairness of the investigation carried out in the matter, the judge remarked, adding that the investigation has been done in a most casual, callous, and farcical manner. The judge further noted the police did not bother to look into the grievance of the respondent that he was being constantly threatened by the accused persons. The court directed the DCP, Northeast, to deposit the fine with the Delhi Legal Services Authority within a week. It also said the fine amount should be recovered from the station house officer of Bhajanpura Police Station and his supervising officers, who have miserably failed in their statutory duties in this case. The incident in question took place on February 24 last year, when Mr. Nasir was bringing his sister home from Max Hospital in Shalimar Bagh. When their cab reached Kajuri Chowk, they saw chaos and fires all around. The police officials present there advised him to avoid the normal route. They took a detour, but were stopped by rioters near Rubber Factory Chowk. They were allowed to proceed after Mr. Nasir told the rioters his name was Krishna. The cab driver, however, insisted that he didn't want to go any further due to the situation, so, Mr. Nasir and his sister left the cab at Gokulpuri flyover. On reaching the street of his house, he noticed a mob of around 100 to 150 people carrying rods, pistols, petrol bombs, and swords etc., which was allegedly being led by the owner of M/S Tyagi store. Mr. Nasir alleged that since he belonged to a different community, Naresh Tyagi fired at him as a result of which he suffered gunshot injury in his left eye. He was taken to Guru Tegh Bahadur Hospital where he was operated upon and subsequently discharged on March 12, 2020. On March 19, 2020, he gave a written complaint to the Bhajanpura show in which he named Naresh Tyagi, Subhash Tyagi, Uttam Tyagi, Sushil, Naresh Kaur, and their other accomplices as the assailants. However, no FIR was registered by the police. Mr. Nasir then approached the trial court on July 17, 2020. In the meantime, an FIR was lodged at the Bhajanpura police station on the statement of an assistant police sub-inspector with regard to the incident of rioting in the area on February 24, 2020. It was also recorded in the FIR that Mr. Nasir had suffered gunshot injuries at the spot on the date and time of the incident. It was further stated that besides him, 6 more persons, Ali Hassan, Altaf, Javed, Aman, Faiza, and Adnan, had also suffered gunshot injuries. The court noted that all the injured persons were taken to hospitals by their family members and not by the police. Police response. The police said all the accused persons named by Mr. Nasir had been thoroughly interrogated, however, no evidence was found against them. Police said Naresh Tyagi and Uttam Tyagi were not present in Delhi at the time, as they had gone to their native place for attending family functions. Sushil was present in his office on duty and nothing was stated about Naresh Kaur. Perusal of the case diaries reveals a very shocking state of affairs, the court said. While the incident against Mr. Nasir happened at North Gonda, the FIR was lodged in respect of Mohanpuri, Maljapur. The factum of 7 persons, having suffered gunshot injuries was in the due knowledge of the investigating agency, however, for reasons best known to it, Section 307 of Indian Penal Code, attempt to murder, and Section 25 of the Arms Act were not invoked initially at the time of FIR registration, the court noted. The court also questioned why the police were unable to trace any eyewitnesses in the case despite the medical legal case of Mr. Nasir clearly having his address. Swabam Rocky Singh, New Delhi. A local court here imposed a cost of 25,000 Indian rupees on Delhi police while questioning the fairness of the probe conducted into a case of a man who suffered a gunshot injury in his left eye during the riots last year. The court said the probe had been done in a most callous and farcical manner. SC Notice to Center, UP on Convoy Yatra. Legal Correspondent, New Delhi. The Supreme Court on Wednesday took suo motu cognizance of a media report that the annual Convoy Yatra is likely to be held from July 25, amid rising fears of a third COVID wave. We were a little disturbed given today's headline in the Indian Express of July 14 about the Convoy Yatra, which is likely to be held from July 25. This court has taken suo motu cognizance of the report and thus issues notice to the Union of India and the states of UP and Uttarakhand to file their early response, a bench, led by Justice Rohinton F. Nariman, said. Haryana excess deaths 7 times official toll huge undercount during second wave. Srinivasan Ramani Chennai. The number of excess deaths registered by the Civil Registration System, CRS, in Haryana ever since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, from April 2020 to May 2021, was 60,397, which is 7.3 times the official reported figure of 8,303 COVID-19 deaths for the same period. This high number was largely due to the deaths registered in April 2021, 28,276, and May 2021, 46,108. In this period, which coincided with the second wave, the excess deaths were around 46,283, compared with the registered COVID-19 tally of 5,148, leading to an undercount factor of 9. The overall tally in Haryana, as of July 12, is 9,556. The excess deaths were calculated based on the month-wise number of deaths registered in the online CRS from January 2018 to May 2021, which was accessed by The Hindu. Not all excess deaths would be related to COVID-19, but a bulk of them are. During the pandemic, the mortality figures registered online for 2018 and 2019 1,85,842 and 1,88,910 were 96.1% and 97.3% of the deaths mentioned in the annual reports on vital statistics in India based on CRS 2018 and 2019 respectively. The undercount factor, 7.3, and the excess deaths for Haryana, 60,397, were lower compared with those from Madhya Pradesh, 23.8 and 1,92,044, in the same period and for which complete data have been made available so far. SC to examine plea challenging sedition. Krishnadas Rajagopal, New Delhi. The Supreme Court will examine a petition filed by a retired Major General who said a nearly 60-year-old judgment of the court that helped sedition survive in the Indian Penal Code was behind time and needed a relook. A bench, led by CJINV Ramana, on Wednesday listed the case for hearing on July 15 and asked Major General S.G. Vambatkar, RETD, represented by advocates P.B. Suresh and S. Prasanna, to serve a copy of his petition to Attorney General K.K. Venugopal. The petitioner argued that the 1962 judgment in the Kedarnath case, which upheld Section 124A, sedition, a relic of the colonial legacy, was given at a time when doctrines such as chilling effect on free speech were unheard of. The Kedarnath judgment was delivered during an era when the scope and interrelationship of fundamental rights such as liberty, equality, and dignity were rather restrictive, the plea said. Afghanistan's future can't be its past. Suhasini Haidar, Tashkent. The world will not legitimize a Taliban regime that comes to power in Kabul by force, indicated External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Wednesday, amid rapid advances made by the militant group on towns and border checkposts in various parts of Afghanistan. Speaking at the contact group meeting of the Eight-Nation Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, in Dushanbe, Mr. Jaishankar said the future of Afghanistan cannot be its past, referring to the previous takeover of the country by the Taliban in 1996. The group also issued a joint statement decrying the violence. The world is against seizure of power by violence and force. It will not legitimize such actions, Mr. Jaishankar told the meeting, which included ministers from Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. Instead, Mr. Jaishankar said, peace negotiations would need to result in an acceptable compromise that reflected the Doha, Moscow, and Istanbul heart of Asia processes, and produced an end state that ensured a democratic and neutral Afghanistan. AP government moves SC against Telangana Andhra people deprived of their legitimate share of Krishna water for drinking and irrigation, petition. River of Discord, AP has accused Telangana of illegally drawing Krishna water for hydel projects. G. Ramankrishna. Legal correspondent, New Delhi. Andhra Pradesh on Wednesday approached the Supreme Court accusing neighbour Telangana of depriving its people of their legitimate share of Krishna water for drinking and irrigation. Andhra Pradesh, represented by Advocate Mahfouz A. Najki, in a petition drawn by Advocate G. Imamputhia and settled by Senior Advocate Dushyant Dave, said Telangana was refusing to follow decisions taken on river water management in the Apex Council constituted under the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act of 2014. It has also ignored the directions of the Krishna River Management Board, KRMB, constituted under the 2014 Act and directions of the central government. Fundamental rights, including right to life of its citizens, are being seriously impaired and infringed on account of unconstitutional, illegal, and unjust acts on part of Telangana and its officials, resulting in the citizens of Andhra Pradesh being deprived of their legitimate share of water for drinking and irrigation purposes, the petition said. The focus of the petition is a Telangana government order of June 28, 2021 notifying that to tap more hydel generation in the state, the government has taken a decision to generate hydel power up to 100% installed capacity. The order directed the Telangana State Power Generation Corporation Limited, SGENCO, to hence generate the hydel power up to 100% installed capacity in the state. Andhra Pradesh said the notification was issued only days after the Ministry of Jal Shakti in its June 17 communication to the director, Hydel, SGENCO, had urged the latter to stop further release of water immediately through Sri Shalam Left Powerhouse and follow the water release orders issued by the KRMB, except in case of extreme grid urgency. The Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh in this regard has written to the Prime Minister on July 1 and July 7, seeking his urgent intervention in view of serious threat to right to life of tens of millions of citizens of Andhra Pradesh, the petition noted. The petition also blamed the centre for not notifying the exact jurisdiction of the KRMB. This is resulting in illegal acts on part of Telangana and its authorities, creating serious constitutional issues, the petition pointed out. Plan to link CSR funding with women entrepreneurship. Jaipur Police's Nirbhaya squad would impart skills training. Mohammed Iqbal Jaipur. A proposal to link the corporate social responsibility, CSR, funding by the private companies for education with the promotion of entrepreneurship among women is being considered in Rajasthan. The focus will be on developing entrepreneurial skills among young women in the rural areas to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The all-women Nirbhaya squad of Jaipur Police has expressed willingness to join a consortium of organizations to impart skills training to women at the grassroots. The squad's nodal officer Sunita Meena said here on Wednesday that the CSR funding for education could be utilized for developing skills among young women in the villages and small towns to create livelihood opportunities for them. Digital skills training is the need of the hour for women, who should be encouraged to take up productive work and join the community efforts in the fields of healthcare, sanitation, and hygiene, Ms. Meena said. New avenues. The CSR educational programs should enable the women entrepreneurs to find new avenues through networking and diversification of work, she said. The bike-borne Nirbhaya squad was formed in 2019 with women constables trained in martial arts, who are deployed at schools, colleges, malls, and bus stops to extend protection to women. The squad took out flag marches during the pandemic and distributed sanitary pads free of cost in the containment zones in Jaipur. Ms. Meena joined other experts at a virtual event here to recommend adopting new strategies to integrate skills and values with the career decision-making process for women. Udaipur-based Narayan Seva Sansthan's President Prashant Agarwal said the CSR education sector could increase the availability of trained professionals through innovative programs. Gautam Sadhu, professor at School of Development Studies, Indian Institute of Health Management Research University, said the corporates had geared up to meet the requirements of the CSR regime introduced in the Companies Act, 2013. The maximum work under the CSR had covered the domains of education, skill development, poverty alleviation, and health care, he said. Permanent Commission for 147 Women Officers Army grants it to 424 women since 2020. The SC had ordered that some cases of denial of permanent commission to women be reconsidered. Special Correspondent New Delhi. The Army said on Wednesday that 147 additional women officers had been granted permanent commission, PC, taking the total number of women officers granted it to 424 out of the 615 officers considered since the landmark judgment by the Supreme Court last year. Following the judgment on grant of PC to women officers in the Army, a special selection board was constituted and 277 women Short Service Commission officers received it after medical scrutiny. Further, in March 2021, the Supreme Court directed reconsideration of some cases of women officers who were not granted PC by laying down revised parameters, a statement from the Army said. The women officers were reconsidered as per directions of the Supreme Court and fresh results have now been declassified. Consequently, 147 more women officers are being granted PC, taking the total PC granted to 424 out of the 615 officers considered, the statement said. Results of a few have been withheld for administrative reasons and awaiting outcome of a clarification petition by the government in the Supreme Court, it said. India, largest source of government info requests, says Twitter it accounts for 25% of global volume, Transparency report. Of the 14,561 information requests Twitter received, 3,615 were from India. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. India is the single largest source of government information requests during the second half of 2020, accounting for 25% of the global volume, as per the biannual Twitter Transparency report released on Wednesday. Globally, Twitter received 14,561 such requests for 51,584 accounts in the 6-month period from June to December 2020, of which 3,615 requests for 7,762 accounts were from India. For India, this is an increase of about 38% from the first half of the year when the number of such requests stood at 2,613. Over the past year, we've experienced and continue to navigate severe global challenges, including the coronavirus pandemic. We've also seen concerted attempts by governments to limit access to the Internet generally and to Twitter specifically, the company said in a blog. It added that global governments and law enforcement agencies submitted approximately 15% more information requests compared to the previous reporting period. For the June-December period, the compliance rate for government information requests was 30% globally, and 0.6% in India. The second highest volume of information requests originated from the United States, comprising 22% of global information requests. During the period, Twitter received a total of 38,524 legal demands to remove content specifying 131,933 accounts. The platform withheld or otherwise removed some or all of the reported content in response to 29% of these global legal demands. For India, the number of legal requests stood at 6,971, up 151% from 2,772 such requests in the first 6 months of 2020. As a result of legal requests, Twitter withheld 60 accounts and 598 tweets. In addition, 1,310 accounts were either suspended or some content was removed. Lack impasse is affecting bilateral ties. Jaishankar says India had hopes China will follow through in resolving issues. Strained ties, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Dushanbe. Tiptai. Suhasini Haidar Ananth Krishnan. The impasse between Indian and Chinese troops at the line of actual control, LAC, is visibly impacting bilateral ties negatively, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar told Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi as they met in Dushanbe on the sidelines of the SCO meeting on Wednesday. Highlighting the lack of movement in the disengagement process apart from the initial withdrawal of troops around the Pangong Lake area earlier this year, Mr. Jaishankar said India had hoped China would follow through in resolving issues at the LAC, as had been agreed in a 5-point agreement with Mr. Wang when the two ministers had last met in Moscow last September. While Indian and Chinese troops completed the first round of disengagement in February 2021, withdrawing from areas and posts around the Pangong Lake, officials have said China continues to stall talks on withdrawing from the other areas where PLA troops have amassed since April 2020, including at Dipsang, Gagra, and Hot Springs areas in Ladakh. Mr. Jaishankar pointed out to State Councillor Mr. Wang that the successful disengagement in the Pangong Lake area earlier this year had created conditions for resolving the remaining issues. It was expected that the Chinese side would work with us towards this objective. EAM noted, however, that the situation in remaining areas is still unresolved, a statement by the External Affairs Ministry said. Ahead of the foreign ministers' meeting, however, both New Delhi and Beijing denied reports of fresh tensions along the LAC. The army also insisted that the agreements with China have not collapsed as claimed in an article published on Wednesday. Ever since the disengagement agreement in February this year, there has been no attempt by either side to occupy the areas from where the disengagement had been undertaken. There have been no clashes in Galwan or any other area, the army statement said. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Jian said he was not aware of the situation mentioned in the report as well. Mr. Jaishankar and Mr. Wang agreed to remain in touch, as India hoped that all remaining issues would be discussed at the next round of senior military commanders' talks as decided by the WMCC group on June 25. In contrast to their last meeting in Moscow, there was no joint statement issued by the two sides after the Jaishankar-Wang meeting. According to the ministry's statement, Mr. Jaishankar also made it clear that other bilateral relations on other issues could not proceed successfully unless the present LAC situation is resolved. Modi, Maldivian president hold talks conversation comes amid #IndiaAdout campaign, tensions within ruling MDP. Narendra Modi with Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohamed Sola in 2019. Meera Srinivasan, Colombo. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohamed Sola on Wednesday took stock of bilateral cooperation in a telephone conversation, the Ministry of External Affairs said in a statement. Mr. Modi called the Indian Ocean island nation the central pillar of India's neighbourhood policy, and maritime vision of security and growth for all in the region or SAGAR, the statement said. The call assumes significance at a time when sections within the Maldives have mounted an #IndiaAdout campaign online, criticizing India's engagement with the Sola administration. It also comes amid reported tensions within the ruling Maldivian Democratic Party, MDP, with parliamentary speaker and former President Mohamed Nasheed, according to mail-based media, telling party colleagues recently that he cannot align himself to President Sola anymore due to ideological differences. Mr. Nasheed, undergoing treatment in the UK after surviving an attempt on his life, was not reachable for comment. The MDP has not commented on the development. President Sola thanked Prime Minister Modi for the India's cooperation and support in the fight against the pandemic, the ministry said. India has provided 3 lakh doses, 2 lakh as a gift and 1 lakh for commercial procurement of COVID-19 vaccines to the Maldives. Both leaders reviewed the progress of the India-supported development projects in the Maldives and expressed satisfaction at the rapid pace of implementation despite the constraints of the pandemic, the statement said. It made no mention of the proposed consulate in the Maldives Adu Atoll, which the Indian cabinet cleared, setting off a controversy in the island nation. India skeptics termed the move heavy-handed, in the absence of any official statement on it from the Maldivian authorities. Mr. Modi also conveyed his congratulations to President Sola on the election of Foreign Minister Abdullah Shahid as the President of the UN General Assembly, the press release said. Thank you. International news. Taliban seize border crossing with Pakistan. Spin Boldak is the latest in a string of border crossings and dry ports taken by Taliban in recent weeks. Creating a commotion, people wave Taliban flags as they drive through the Pakistani border town of Chaman on Wednesday. Of Pasgar Akoksai. Agence France-PresseMoscow Kandahar. The Taliban captured the strategic border crossing of Spin Boldak on the frontier with Pakistan on Wednesday, continuing sweeping gains made since foreign forces stepped up their withdrawal from Afghanistan. Afghanistan's Interior Ministry denied the insurgents had taken the area even as social media was flooded with pictures of Taliban fighters relaxing in the frontier town. Residents also told AFP it was in the Taliban's hands. Spin Boldak is the latest in a string of border crossings and dry ports seized by the Taliban in recent weeks, with the insurgents looking to choke off much-needed revenue from the government in Kabul while also filling their own coffers. Heavy fighting. The seizure of the border crossing follows days of heavy fighting across Kandahar province, where the government was forced to deploy commando fighters to prevent the fall of the provincial capital even as the insurgents inched closer to taking the frontier. In a statement, insurgent spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid assured traders and residents there that their security is guaranteed. But Afghan officials insisted they were still in control. The terrorist Taliban had some movements near the border area. The security forces have repelled the attack, Interior Ministry spokesman Tariq Aryan said. Strategic value. Residents disputed the government's claims, however. The border crossing is one of the most strategically valuable for the Taliban. It provides direct access to Pakistan's Balochistan province where the insurgents' top leadership has been based for decades, along with an unknown number of reserve fighters who regularly enter Afghanistan to help bolster their ranks. Hours after the crossing fell, an AFP reporter on the Pakistani side saw around 150 Taliban fighters riding on motorcycles, waving insurgent flags, as they demanded to be allowed to cross into Afghanistan. Balochistan is a favored destination for fighters regularly heading for medical treatment and hosts many of their families. A major highway leading from the border connects to Pakistan's commercial capital Karachi and its sprawling port on the Arabian Sea, which is considered a linchpin for Afghanistan's billion-dollar heroin trade that has provided a crucial source of revenue for the Taliban's war chest over the years. Pullout is a mistake, says George Bush. Associated Press, Berlin. Former U.S. President George W. Bush criticized the Western withdrawal from Afghanistan in an interview with a German broadcaster released on Wednesday, saying he fears that Afghan women and girls will suffer unspeakable harm. Asked in an interview with Deutsche Welle whether the withdrawal is a mistake, Bush replied, "You know, I think it is, yeah, because I think the consequences are going to be unbelievably bad." The war in Afghanistan began under Mr. Bush after the September 11, 2001 attacks on the U.S. The withdrawal of American and NATO troops is now nearing completion amid Taliban advances. 12 killed in Pakistan bus blast, including 9 Chinese. China blames bomb attack, Pakistan says gas leak caused blast. Wreckage, people stand next to the remains of the bus, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province on Wednesday. AFP. Agence France-PresseMoscow. Beijing said 9 Chinese workers were among 12 people killed on Wednesday by a bomb attack on a bus in northwestern Pakistan and called for severe punishment, but Islamabad blamed the explosion on a gas leak. The bus was carrying around 40 Chinese engineers, surveyors, and mechanical staff to a hydropower dam construction site in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Islamabad is Beijing's closest regional ally, but the security of Chinese workers has long been of concern in Pakistan. Large numbers of them are based in the country to supervise and build infrastructure projects. Pakistan's foreign ministry in a statement said the bus plunged into a ravine after a mechanical failure, resulting in leakage of gas that caused a blast. Meanwhile, China's foreign ministry spokesman Zhao Jian expressed his shock and condemnation over the bombing. Protect the Chinese. He urged Pakistan to severely punish those responsible and earnestly protect Chinese nationals and projects. The Chinese embassy in Islamabad also earlier said its nationals had come under attack. Both countries said 9 Chinese workers and 3 Pakistanis had died in the disaster, which happened at around 7 a.m. Arif Khan Yousafzai, a senior government official in Kohistan district where the blast happened, said around 28 people were also injured. They were all airlifted to hospital by the military, officials said. Insurgents back to old ways in newly seized territory. Taliban issued orders to women not to step out without a male companion and men not to shave. Agence France-PresseMoscow. Days after the Taliban captured a remote district in Afghanistan's north, they issued their first orders in the form of a letter to the local imam. It said women can't go to the bazaar without a male companion, and men should not shave their beards, said C. Fadila, 25, a resident of Kalafgan district. The insurgents also banned smoking, he added, and warned that anybody violating the rules will be seriously dealt with. The Taliban are making huge advances across the country as they capitalize on the final withdrawal of foreign troops, capturing districts, seizing key border crossings, and encircling provincial capitals. Harsh rule. In some areas they are again introducing the harsh interpretation of Islamic rule that earned them notoriety until being overthrown by the US-led invasion that followed the September 11 attacks. Last month they took Sherkhan Bandar, a northern customs post that connected the country to Tajikistan over a U.S.-funded bridge that spanned the Panjshir River. After Sherkhan Bandar fell, the Taliban ordered women not to step out of their homes, said Sajda, who told AFP she worked in a local factory at the time. There were many women and young girls doing embroidery, tailoring and shoemaking. The Taliban's order has now terrified us. The Taliban ruled Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001 according to an interpretation of the Quran little changed in centuries. Banned from school. Women were ordered to stay indoors unless accompanied by a male relative, girls were banned from school, and those found guilty of crimes such as adultery were stoned to death. Men had relatively more freedom but were ordered not to shave, would be beaten if they didn't attend prayers, and were told to only wear traditional clothing. Afghanistan is deeply conservative and some rural pockets of the country adhere to similar rules even without Taliban oversight, but the insurgents have tried to impose these edicts even in more modern centers. Ethiopia PM vows to repel enemies. Agence France-Presse Addis Ababa. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on Wednesday vowed to repel attacks by Ethiopia's enemies after rebels in Tigray launched a fresh offensive to regain territory in the region. Tigrayan forces this week claimed a series of battlefield gains in a renewed assault that comes 2 weeks after the federal government declared a unilateral ceasefire in the face of rebel advances. The latest rebel push followed the stunning recapture of the regional capital Mekele last month from federal forces. Unrest in South Africa stokes fears of shortages. 72 died in protests, over 1,200 arrested. A factory burns on the outskirts of Durban as riots continue in South Africa on Wednesday. AP. Agence France-Presse Johannesburg. Unrest raged in South Africa on Wednesday for the 6th day running, stoking fears of food and fuel shortages as disruption to farming, manufacturing and oil refining began to bite. 72 people have died and more than 1,200 people have been arrested, according to official figures, since former President Jacob Zuma began a 15-month jail term, sparking protests that swiftly turned violent. Looting has hit supply chains and transport links, especially in the southeastern province of KwaZulu-Natal, sending a shockwave to goods and services around parts of the country. State-owned logistics operator, Transnet, on Wednesday declared a force majeure, an emergency beyond its control on a key rail line that links Johannesburg to the coast because the unrest and subsequent closure of roads has meant employees are not able to report for duty. In the port city of Durban, people started queuing outside food stores and at fuel stations as early as 4 a.m., 2 o'clock GMT, when the COVID night curfew ends, an AFP photographer saw. U.S. urges ASEAN to press for end to Myanmar crisis. Associated Press Manila. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken asked his Southeast Asian counterparts Wednesday to press for an end to violence in Myanmar, its return to democracy and the release of all political prisoners in a video conference attended by the military-led nation's top diplomat. In the meeting with foreign ministers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, Mr. Blinken also underscored the U.S. rejection of China's unlawful territorial claims in the South China Sea and stressed that Washington stands with nations at odds with Beijing in the sea disputes. Mr. Blinken's meeting with the 10-nation bloc also addressed the coronavirus pandemic, State Department spokesman Ned Price said, as surging infections fill hospitals and morgues. Russia, U.S. have common interests on climate change. Vladimir PutinDMITRI LOVETSKY. Agence France-PresseMoscow. Russian President Vladimir Putin told United States climate envoy John Kerry that Moscow and Washington have a shared interest in battling climate change, the Kremlin said in a statement on Wednesday, in a rare area of common ground between the rivals. The climate problem is one of the areas where Russia and the United States have common interests and similar approaches, Mr. Putin said in a phone call with Mr. Kerry, who is visiting Moscow, it said. The former Secretary of State is in Russia this week to discuss climate change with officials and has called on the country to cooperate with the U.S. on the issue. Mr. Putin said Moscow attaches great importance to achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement and advocates depoliticizing dialogue on climate change. The comments on a rare point of cooperation between the two countries come after Mr. Putin met U.S. President Joe Biden for talks in Geneva last month. Moscow has welcomed Mr. Kerry's visit. Thank you. Economy news. RBI bars MasterCard from adding new users. Issuer not compliant with data rules. Special correspondent Mumbai. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, on Wednesday imposed restrictions on MasterCard Asia/Pacific Pte. Limited from onboarding new domestic customers, debit, credit, or prepaid, onto its card network from July 22 for non-compliance with the regulator's directions. Notwithstanding lapse of considerable time and adequate opportunities being given, the entity has been found to be non-compliant with the directions on storage of payment system data, the RBI said. The order would not impact existing MasterCard customers. An RBI circular on storage of payment system data dated April 6, 2018, directed all system providers to ensure, within 6 months, the entire data relating to payment systems operated by them was stored only in India. They were to report compliance and also submit an audit report. In April, RBI had barred American Express and Diners Club from onboarding new users on similar grounds. Area under sugarcane cultivation rises a tad. Sugar output likely at 309 lakh ton. Special correspondent Coimbatore. Area under sugarcane is expected to be almost 54.55 lakh hectare in 2021 to 2022 sugar season, October to September, or 3% higher than the current season's area, according to the Indian Sugar Mills Association, ISMA. Uttar Pradesh is estimated to have a sugarcane area of 23.12 lakh hectare against 23.07 lakh hectares in 2020 to 2021 season. Maharashtra's cane area has risen by about 11% to 12.75 lakh hectare. The area in Karnataka is 5.22 lakh hectare against 5.01 lakh hectare. Sugar production so far during the current sugar season, that ends in September, is 307 lakh ton. Another 2 lakh ton is expected to be produced during the special season in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, taking the total production for the current sugar year to 309 lakh ton. After accounting for a reduction in sugar production on account of diversion of cane juice and bee molasses to ethanol, ISMA estimates production in 2021 to 2022 season at about 310 lakh ton. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this video as a podcast. Do like, share and comment. Press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get new notifications. Thank you. Take care and stay safe. God bless you all. Jai Ma Bharati. To download news and editorials in mp3, follow us on Telegram, Virtual School Official. The link is provided in the description below.